Okay, so picture this. You hit play on your favorite rock song, and that massive, perfect sound just hits you.
Mm-hmm.
The drums feel huge, the guitar is just searing, and the vocal is right there in your ear.
It feels like magic.
It does. But what if I told you that those 3 minutes of music probably took hundreds of hours, dozens of microphones, and a serious amount of physics to create?
It's absolutely true. We have this idea of rock music as just raw emotion, but every single time a band captures that emotion, they're using this intense blend of, artistic vision and pure scientific precision.
So today, we're going to unpack the whole technical journey of a rock song. We're going to look at the technology, the people, and the actual science it takes to turn noise into a hit record.
And I think the best place to start is right at the beginning, the analog era, a time of, let's say, brutal simplicity.
The early days, we're talking pre-1950s, were just incredibly challenging.
Oh, yeah.
A band would gather together, usually in one room, standing around a single microphone.
And they would record the entire performance live directly onto a wax or acetate disc.
That disc was the final product. There was no undo button.
None. If the guitarist hit a bad chord or, the singer missed a cue, that's it. You couldn't fix it.
You had to scrap the whole thing.
You scrap the expensive disc and you start the entire session over from the top. And that's really why that early rock and roll sound is so raw and energetic.
Because it was a single, honest performance.
Exactly. And the technical challenge was just immense. Engineers were dealing with a very real, very loud problem.
Right. How do you balance a quiet vocal with a booming drum kit using just one microphone?
The placement of that mic was everything. It was the most crucial decision the engineer made. They had to get the acoustic balance just right in the room in real time.
And if the band got too loud,
The recording needle, the stylus that was cutting the groove into the disc,
yeah,
it would literally jump
ruining the take.
instantly.
So those early rock classics were often recorded in a mad dash.
Mm.
Maybe just one or two takes.
Because studio time was expensive, the blank discs were expensive, it was all about efficiency over perfection. But it also means those tracks are these incredible documents of a single moment in time.
That whole high-risk environment really changed with one key invention.
Magnetic tape. This was the revolution.
So what was the big breakthrough here?
Well, there were two things. First, magnetic tape just sounded way better than the old discs, much higher quality. But the crucial part was that tape made editing possible for the first time.
You could record something, play it back, and if you didn't like it,
You could erase it and try again. And this led directly to what we now call multitracking.
and multitracking is the ability to record different instruments or voices at different times onto the same piece of tape.
Right. And this wasn't just a technical upgrade, it was a complete artistic shift.
That's the key. Music recording went from just documenting a live performance to actually constructing an idealized one.
You weren't just capturing what happened, you were building exactly what you wanted the listener to hear.
At first, the machines were pretty limited, right? Maybe 2 tracks.
Yeah, two tracks. Maybe you'd put all the instruments on one and the lead vocal on the other. But engineers pushed the tech really fast. The tape itself got wider,
How wide?
eventually up to 2 inches wide, which could hold 16 or even 24 separate tracks of audio.
Think about that freedom. The bassist can record their part on Monday. The guitarist comes in on Tuesday.
And the singer could spend all of Wednesday morning getting their harmonies perfect, all working independently.
And if someone made a small mistake, you didn't have to start over. This is where that almost mythical technique of splicing comes in.
It sounds so technical, but it was incredibly physical.
How so?
An engineer would take a razor blade and literally cut the magnetic tape, physically remove the mistake, maybe just a single bad note.
And then just stick it back together.
They'd rejoin the good sections of tape using special adhesive splicing tape. And if you listen really closely on some classic 60s and 70s albums, you can sometimes hear a tiny little change in the background noise right at a splice point.
Wow. So once you have all this technology, you need people to manage it. You need a team.
You need strong leadership. This brings us to the studio team, the directors and the scientists of the recording process.
Every great record needs a strong leader. And in the studio, that's the music producer. You could really think of them as the director of the whole operation.
It's a holistic job. They oversee the entire creative vision. So they might help the band choose which songs to record or suggest changing a melody to make it catchier.
They're the artistic guide, but they also handle the business side.
Absolutely. The producer manages the budget, the timeline. They're the link between the musician's art and the record label's, financial reality.
So they might tell a drummer, that rhythm is too busy, let's simplify it, or ask a singer to deliver a line with a different emotion.
Exactly. They bridge the gap between the art and the science. And the scientist, in this case, is the engineer.
The technical expert running all the gear. So let's talk about that gear. What's the hardest instrument to record?
Oh, without a doubt, the drum kit.
Why is that?
Because you're dealing with so many loud sound sources all packed into a tiny space, you can't just use one microphone. You need a whole collection.
Right, you need one for the snare drum, one for the hi-hat.
And the kick drum is its own special challenge. It moves a huge amount of air and creates these really low frequencies. So you need a special type of microphone, a dynamic microphone that can handle that high sound pressure without distorting.
And then you have those two mics high above the kit, the overheads.
Right, and those capture the cymbals and give you the overall stereo image, so the drums sound wide and big in your headphones.
The room itself has to matter too.
Hugely. Engineers use sound baffles to stop sound from reflecting badly. A small, untreated room can make a huge drum kit sound thin or kind of boxy.
Okay, so drums are the foundation. But what makes rock rock is that electric guitar tone. How do they capture that?
The basic process is pretty simple. The guitar plugs into an amp, and you put a microphone right up against the speaker. But the details are everything.
The placement.
The placement is critical. Move the mic an inch towards the center of the speaker cone, and the tone gets brighter, more aggressive. Move it to the edge, it gets warmer and rounder.
That small change can dictate the mood of the whole song.
For sure. And of course, guitarists are using FX pedals for distortion, delay, reverb, all the sounds that define entire genres.
And to get that really massive sound, engineers use layering, right?
Yes. That will record the same guitar part multiple times, maybe 3 or 4 tracks of the same riff. When you play them all back together, it sounds infinitely thicker and more powerful than any single guitar could.
Then we get to maybe the most important part, the lead vocals.
The centerpiece. This has to have absolute clarity. It's carrying the lyrics, the melody.
So the singer is usually in a small, quiet booth wearing headphones. And there's always that screen in front of the mic.
The pop filter. That's to stop the bursts of air from keys and B-splosives from hitting the microphone and making a popping sound.
And they use special microphones for vocals.
Usually very expensive, very sensitive condenser microphones. They're designed to capture every little detail, every breath in the singer's voice.
Now here's the reality check. A singer almost never records a perfect take from start to finish.
Rarely, if ever. They might sing the same part 10, maybe 20 times.
And later, the engineer goes through all those takes and combines the best parts.
Right. It's a process called comping, short for composing. They'll take the best phrase from take 3, the best word from take 12, maybe a single syllable from take 17, and stitch them all together.
To create one single, perfect vocal performance.
A composite performance, yes.
Well, wait a minute. Isn't combining 20 takes to create one perfect performance? Isn't that kind of dishonest? Doesn't it take away the human part of it?
That is a fascinating question, and it's a huge debate in the industry. For the listener, the result is technically flawless. But you're right, many people argue that it smooths over the very imperfections that make a voice sound human and unique.
But it's just standard practice now.
It's an accepted studio convention, yeah. It's driven by the fact that the technology allows for that level of perfection.
So once all these individual tracks are recorded, you move into the final stage, post-production.
Starting with mixing.
Which is where you take all those separate tracks, drums, guitars, vocals, and you balance them all together to create the final song.
The engineer uses a big mixing console, or now usually a computer, to adjust the volume of every single element.
And they use tools like EQ, equalization.
Which is basically like advanced tone control. You use EQ to carve out a little space for each instrument so they aren't fighting each other. You make sure the bass guitar isn't clashing with the low end of the guitars.
The panning.
Panning is placing sounds in the left or the right speaker. It creates that sense of space so it feels like the band is spread out in front of you.
And the main goal of the mix is to make sure you can always hear the singer.
No matter how loud everything else gets, the vocal has to be clear and sit right on top.
After the mix is done, it goes to one last stage. Mastering.
Mastering is the final polish before it gets released. A mastering engineer, who is often a totally different person, makes tiny adjustments to the overall volume and tone.
Their job is consistency, right? making sure all the songs on an album sound like they belong together.
Exactly. And they prepare the files to be as loud and clear as possible for different formats, whether that's for vinyl or for a streaming service.
And this all used to be done on tape and big consoles, but now it's mostly on computers.
Almost entirely. Using software called a digital audio workstation or a DAW.
DAWs are basically the modern version of multi-track tape machines.
But on steroids, they give you a nearly unlimited number of tracks, and the biggest advantage is non-destructive editing.
Which means
It means when you cut a piece of audio or add an effect, you're not actually changing the original file. You can always undo it. You're just moving sound waves around on a screen. No more razor blades.
and these DAWs let musicians collaborate from anywhere in the world.
Instantly. But even with all this amazing digital tech, the physics of the room you record in still matters. A lot.
Right, you mentioned studio design. Professional studios almost never have parallel walls.
They're designed that way on purpose. Parallel walls create something called standing waves, where sound bounces back and forth and creates these weird, muddy echoes, so non-parallel walls scatter the sound.
And they use soft materials like foam to absorb sound.
To absorb reflections and make the sound clearer or drier. And they might use hard surfaces like wood to make a room sound more alive and reverberant. A vocal booth should be dead and dry, but you often want a drum room to be big and lev.
It all comes back to how you capture that sound in the first place, with the microphones.
The two main types are still fundamental, dynamic and condenser.
Dynamic mics are the tough ones. You use them for loud stuff, like a guitar amp or a snare drum.
Right, they can handle high pressure. Condenser mics are much more sensitive and delicate. They need their own power source, but they capture incredible detail.
Which is why you use them for vocals or acoustic guitar.
Exactly. They pick up all those subtle nuances.
So the next time you listen to your favorite song, just remember what you're hearing. It's not just musicians playing. It's decades of physics, engineering, and art, all constructed to create a single manufactured moment of perfection.
Yeah, the modern song is built piece by piece, not just captured live. And that leaves us with a provocative thought. If the engineer, the producer, and the software are constructing, say, 80% of what you hear, who really deserves the creative credit? The musician or the studio scientist who put it all together?
Something to think about. Good luck with your studies.